Hello. Today we are going to continue our work reading and writing about opinions. Recently, especially in reading, we have been reading articles or pieces of expository or nonfiction writing that share facts. And we've also been working on persuading or convincing other people to share our opinion in some of our writing. Today, we're going to take a look at a couple of things. I'm going to get rid of my picture here so you can see the screen better for a minute. Okay. Today, you're going to hear two articles with opposing views or opposing opinions about zoos. That means they have different opinions. One thinks that zoos are not good for animals. The other believes the opposite, that zoos are good for animals. Each of our authors will share some facts to support the opinions that they are writing about. They won't just tell us what they believe, but they will also use facts to support what they're trying to persuade or convince us of. Then we will have a chance to think what your own opinion about zoos is and how you can use those facts that we've heard or other facts to support what you believe and convince or persuade others. All right, let's move on to the first article. Hello again. All right, we're going to start with our first article called Zoos Are Good for Animals. Before we do, let's talk about some of the vocabulary or words that will show up. One word or phrase you'll need to know is being threatened, which means in danger. Okay, when we read about something being threatened, it means it is in danger. Okay, we will also hear about natural instincts, which are the ways of behaving that animals in the wild are born knowing. Kind of like how baby ducks or baby geese are born knowing to follow their moms. All right. Today, while we read this article, I'm going to go section by section, and every time I finish a section, I want us to stop and think about what are we learning? What are the facts in this article? What is it being taught to us by this author? All right. Zoos are good for animals. Lions and tigers and bears. Oh my, just about everyone enjoys a trip to the zoo. But are zoos good for animals? Many people think that they are. One way that zoos help animals is by caring for animals that are sick. For example, the Wildlife Health Center at the Bronx Zoo in New York provides care for more than 15,000 animals. The zookeepers at the Bronx Zoo also work with animals to keep their minds and their bodies healthy. For example, the zookeepers use toys and games to help tigers develop their natural instincts, such as the instincts needed for hunting. All right, let's stop and think for a second. What are we learning? If you have someone near you that you can turn and tell them, what did you learn in this part, the part highlighted in blue? Some things that I learned were, well, it said that zoos care for animals that are sick, and it talked about at the Bronx Zoo how they've cared for more than 15,000 animals. I kept reading, and another thing that I learned was that zookeepers use games and toys to help develop animals' instincts, like for hunting. All right, so I'm learning. We're going to read this next part, highlighted in green. While we're reading, think about what you're learning in this part. Specifically, what are you learning in the part in green? Zoos protect animals too. Animals in zoos are safe from hunters. Zoos are also safe places for animals whose habitats are being threatened. By protecting animals, zoos help endangered species survive. In the last 30 years, zoos working with other conservation groups or groups that are trying to protect the environment and animals, zoos working with other conservation groups have helped save black-footed ferrets, California condors, red wolves, and other endangered species. All right, well, let's stop and think about this. What did we learn in this section? Once again, if there's someone near you, turn and tell them. I learned, or this part taught me. Well, this part taught me that zoos keep animals safe from hunters. Okay, they're protected. You can't hunt an animal in the zoo. That's true. I hadn't thought about that. It also taught me that sometimes when an animal's habitat is threatened or its home is threatened, the zoos can help those animals, like they did with black-footed ferrets, California condors, and red wolves. All right, let's keep going. We have one more section and a little conclusion. We'll read this part in blue and stop again to think, what are we learning? Zoos are also places where scientists can study animals. Zoos often share information with other zoos and scientists, which helps everyone learn more about the animals. The more we understand our animal friends, the more we can help protect them. The next time you visit the zoo, say thanks to the zookeepers for making life better for the animals that live there. All right, so let's look at that part in blue and really think about what did we learn in that part? Well, I think mostly I learned that scientists can study with animals in zoo, and then in particular they can then share that with other scientists. So like, oh, okay, so maybe if like you don't have any elephants in your zoo, but there's a scientist at another zoo studying elephants, they could share with you and they could tell you what they learned about elephants. Okay, all right, so let's see. We learned zoos care for animals that are sick. They use games and toys to help develop animals' instincts. That zoos keep animals safe from hunters. We learned that zoos help animals whose habitats are being threatened, and that scientists study animals in zoos and share with other scientists. Well, okay, but this was an opinion article, so it's important that not only do we have to think about what we're learning or the facts that we're being told, we have to ask ourselves, what is the big idea? And that kind of basically is just asking us to think about what does the author want us to remember in each part, okay? And if I think about this entire article, it makes me think, well, the first thing the author wants us to, I think the author wants us to remember that really zoos are good for animals. That's kind of their big idea. Now, let's go section for section and see if we can figure out what the big idea or what the author wants us to remember in each part. Just like we did before, we'll go one section at a time. One way that zoos help animals is by caring for them and treating animals that are sick. For example, the Wildlife Healthcare Center or the Bronx Zoo in New York provides care for more than 15,000 animals. The zookeepers at the Bronx Zoo also work with animals to keep their minds and their bodies healthy. For example, the zookeepers use toys and games to help tigers develop their natural instincts, such as the instincts for hunting. Well, okay, so we talked about how we learned that zoos care for animals that are sick, and they use games and toys to help develop their animals' instincts. I guess, what is this section saying? What's the big idea here? What does the author want us to remember? If you can, turn and tell somebody near you. I think the author wants me to remember. Oh, hey, you, Cole. I think the author wants me to remember that zoos help animals. All right, let's move on to the next section. This one will be highlighted in green. Zoos protect animals too. Animals are safe from hunters. Animals in zoos are safe from hunters. Zoos are also safe places for animals whose habitats are being threatened. By protecting animals, zoos help endangered species survive. In the last 30 years, zoos working with other conservation groups have helped save black-footed ferrets, California condors, red wolves, and other endangered species. Well, all right. We know that in this section we learned zoos keep animals safe from hunters and zoos help animals whose habitat is being threatened. But what does the author want us to remember? What's the big idea? What's the important thing in this part? Turn and tell someone near you if you can. Maybe a stuffed animal or a pet dog. Well, I think that maybe the author wants us to remember in this part that, well, they're safe and that their habitats are being threatened, so their homes, it gives them a place to live. I think maybe it's saying that zoos protect animals. Okay, well, we have one more part. I'm going to get my picture out of the way here so you can see it while we read. Okay, once again, we're going to think, what's the big idea in this last section highlighted in blue? Zoos are places where scientists can study animals. Zoos often share information with other zoos and scientists, which helps everyone learn more about the animals. The more we understand our animal friends, the more that we can help protect them. Okay, well, this taught me that scientists study animals at zoo and share with other scientists. We'd gone over that, but again, what's the big idea? Huh? What's that? What's that, Jacob? Oh, you think that the big idea is zoos teach us about animals? Well, I think that makes sense. The scientists learn and can teach us and other scientists about them. Okay, Well, all right. So we've read an article called Zoos Are Good at Animals. We learned some facts from the author, and then we looked deeper and understood the author's opinion that zoos are good for animals. The author says that zoos are good for animals because they help animals, protect animals, and help us learn or teach us about animals. Well, okay, but I mean, a lot of these are facts, but some of this seems like an opinion. Like, zoos are good for animals, but I'm not so sure. It's important that we think about, well, is there another opinion that could be had out there? Well, perhaps there are. So we're going to explore a second opinion article. In this one, the author has a different view than the first. They will also use facts to teach about it, and then express their opinion and try and convince you to feel the way they do. Before we start, zoos are not good for animals. Let's think of some words that might pop up in this one that we'll want to be ready for. Pacing. This is a word that means walking back and forth. Often you pace when you are feeling restless or unable to get comfortable or nervous. Okay? I like to think of restless, like when I'm trying to get to sleep and my legs won't stop moving, or I'm sitting at a desk and I keep tapping my toes. I just can't get comfortable. Another word that comes up will be enclosure. These are places where animals are kept. And you can see here in the pictures, we've got an elephant and what appears to be a cheetah or a leopard in an enclosure at a zoo. All right. The next one is you are not alone. And this means that other people feel the same way you do. So when they say you are not alone, it just kind of means other people feel the same way you do. Sorry, my face is blocking that a little bit. I'll get out of the way for a minute. All right. Again, we're going to read this section by section, and as we go, we're going to ask ourselves, what are we learning? And then later, we'll talk again about what's the big idea. But first, let's read it one time and just think, what are we learning? What are the facts in here? Okay, we'll start with the first section. It'll be in green. Listen, follow along with your ears, your eyes, and your brain. Zoos are not good for animals. Imagine that you are visiting a zoo. Okay. You notice a lion is in its cage, pacing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The lion seems restless or unable to get comfortable and unhappy, and it probably is. Experts say that when a lion, tiger, or other animal paces in its cage like that, it often means that the animal is bored or upset. Does that make you feel bad? If so, you are not alone. Again, that means other people feel the same way you do. If you're upset when you think about animals pacing in a zoo, you're not alone. Okay. Many people believe that keeping animals in zoos is cruel and unnatural. For one thing, some of the enclosures in zoos are much too small for the animals. So some of the cages they're saying are too small. Okay. Many zoos try to make their enclosures look like animals' natural habitats. But just because it looks right to us does not mean it's good for the animals. Take elephants, for example. In the wild, elephants walk as much as 30 miles every day, looking for food and stopping at watering holes or like ponds or lakes, places to get a drink. Not even the best zoos can build enclosures large enough for elephants to live as they do in their natural habitat. Okay, well, there's a lot of opinion in there, and I think I have an idea of how the author feels, but I want to think about, what am I learning? What are the facts? What did you learn when we heard this part? Try to let somebody know. Some things that I learned in this part were that animals often pace or walk back and forth in zoos. It also said that experts say pacing means that animals are bored or upset. Okay, and then I learned that zoo enclosures, or the places where animals are kept, are much smaller than an animal's natural habitat. Well, okay. Let's read the next section and see what else we can learn from this article. In the wild, animals learn how to survive when they are very young. For example, a young leopard learns how and where to hunt by watching its mother. When they are raised in zoos, leopards and other young animals never learn these or other important skills. They do not have to because humans feed and protect them. This is not a good thing. Most animals raised in zoos can never go back to their natural homes. Well, okay. Try to tell someone near you, what did you learn in this part, the part outlined in blue? Something I didn't know before was animals in the wild learn to survive and hunt when they're young. But in zoos, people take care of the animals and they don't learn to protect themselves. Well, okay. All right, let's finish this up and then we'll start thinking about what's the big idea. Some people say that zoos teach people about animals. Others argue that we do not have to put animals in cages to learn about them and that they belong in their natural habitat. I wonder which one this author agrees with. Well, let's take a look. What's the big idea? What does this author want us to remember? Well, I'm going to read that last paragraph again. Some people say zoos teach people about animals. Others argues that we do not have to put animals in cages to learn about them, and that they belong in their natural habitat. I think overall, this author's opinion or believes that zoos are not good for animals. In fact, it's right there in the title. Just like many nonfiction books, you can often find the opinion stated in the title of an opinion or persuasive article. All right, so the author wants us to remember zoos are not good for animals. How are they using their facts to think about one big idea in each section? Well, let's reread each section and ask ourselves, what's the big idea here? Okay, again, imagine that you are visiting a zoo. You notice a lion in its cage pacing back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. The lion seems restless and unhappy. It probably is. Experts say that when a lion, tiger, or other animal paces in its cage like that, it often means that the animal is bored or upset. Does that make you feel bad? If so, you are not alone. Many people believe that keeping animals in zoos is cruel and unnatural. For one thing, some of the enclosures where they are kept are much too small for animals. Many zoos try to make their enclosures look like the animals' natural habitats. But just because it looks right to us does not mean it is good for the animals. Take elephants, for example. In the wild, elephants walk as much as 30 miles every day, looking for food and stopping at watering holes. Not even the best zoos can build enclosures large enough for elephants to live as they do in their natural habitat. Okay, well, we talked about how we learned that animals often pace in zoos, and experts say the pacing means they're bored or upset, and zoo enclosures are much smaller than their habitats. What are you thinking the big idea is? What does the author really want us to remember from this part? Yeah, you know what? I think I agree. I think what the author is trying to tell us is animals are unhappy in zoos. That's their opinion, and they're using some of the facts they have to support that. All right, well, let's check the next part and see what we think the big idea or what they want us to remember in that part is. In the wild, animals learn how to survive when they are very young. For example, a young leopard learns how and where to hunt by watching its mother. When they are raised in zoos, leopards and other young animals never learn these other important skills. They do not have to because humans feed and protect them. This is not a good thing. Most animals raised in zoos can never go back to their natural homes. Okay, well, I think maybe that in this part, when we know that we learn that animals in the wild learn to survive and hunt when they are young, and in zoos people take care of animals and they don't learn to protect themselves, thinking, maybe, well, I don't know. Tell me if you agree. I think that the big idea in this part is animals cannot learn in zoos. Yeah, what's that? I think another way to say that would be animals belong in the wild. Yeah, animals cannot learn in zoos or animals belong in the wild. Each could be used as a big idea for the part in blue. All right, well, we heard an article arguing that zoos were good for animals, and now we've heard one that seems to argue that, well, zoos are not good for animals. They both used facts and shared their opinion and tried to convince us. Well, what now? Well, Big Hills, now it's time for you to tell us. What do you think? Are zoos good for animals? And when you're sharing your opinion, remember, you want to start with your opinion, give 2 reasons, and give examples for your reason. So, I don't know, that could sound like, I think zoos are good for animals because they protect animals from hunters and care for them when they're sick. For example, the zoo in the Bronx cares for more than 15,000 animals, and like when those zoos worked with the conservation groups to protect red-footed ferrets and California condors. Now, you might disagree with me. So you might say, I think zoos are not good for animals, or I think zoos are bad for animals because they're too small and they don't let animals learn their natural instincts. For example, an elephant usually roams over 30 miles. You couldn't fit that in a zoo. And a leopard learns to hunt when it is very young. But in a zoo, animals or people just feed and care for the animal so it doesn't learn to follow its instincts. Right? The whole point of an opinion is that you can have your own opinion. You simply must back it up with reasons and examples. And it's okay if we don't agree. We just need to listen to each other and share our becauses. All right. It sounds like an opinion, but I think it's more like a fact that the kids at Olympic Hills are the best. Thank you for spending time with me, and hopefully everybody is staying safe, staying sane, and washing their hands. I love you all. Have a good week.